We are here today to explore being creators. To start off with, just a couple words. What is it you want to create in your life? And then I'm going to tell you a little story. This story began a few years ago. My wife and I decided one morning to hook up for dinner at one of our favorite restaurants. We went our separate ways. Not in that sense. I got back home from work early. I look at my watch and I go, hey, I got some time for a quick bike ride. So I feed our dogs and I head out. Little did I know that a few blocks from home, the day was going to take a dramatic turn. I was struck head-on by an SUV, sent cartwheeling through the air, and landed face down on the pavement. Had it not been for my helmet, I would have been dead on the spot. As it was, I suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. My brain tore loose from the connective tissue, smashed into the back of my skull. I was immediately rendered unconscious and in a coma. The paramedics came, got me stabilized, and took me to the local head trauma hospital. I was hanging on to life by a thread. Ushered up to the ICU, they're doing their best to keep me alive. About this time, my wife comes home and she's looking for me. She saw the note, I was out riding. She doesn't give it a whole lot of thought because I've had flat tires before and been running a little late. But then darkness starts to fall. Now she's getting a little concerned and frantic. She makes some calls. Finally calls the police saying, hey, have you seen, I want to report a missing person, I guess. Have you seen someone, they ride a purple bike, they wear a yellow bandana, and they got their bicycling helmet on. Dispatcher comes back a few minutes later and says, someone matching that description was taken to the local hospital. You need to get there ASAP and identify him. Wow. She took the longest, shortest ride of her life. She walks into the admissions, gets up to the counter, fills out the paperwork that's mandatory, and all she wants to do is get upstairs and see, is that him? They tell her then, you need to go to a separate room, and they take her aside. While she's waiting there, in walks the chaplain, and she's thinking, that can't be a good sign. He comes over and explains that his job is to reassure her and take her up to the ICU. They get in the elevator, the doors open, finally on the ICU. He ushers her down a narrow corridor, busy with activity, nurses and doctors, saving other people's lives. And he introduces her to the doctor. He takes her over to the window and says, is that your husband? And she positively identifies me then. Bruised and battered, hanging on to life by a thread, the doctor then gives her some more news. He said, your husband suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. The next 12 hours are crucial. If we can get him through that, we're pretty sure he'll live. What we can't tell you is how he'll recover. Every brain injury is unique. He suffered a severe one. It was at midbrain, which is your fuel cell. So I was very dazed, non-responsive. They give you a series of tests. I failed all of them. He told my wife, life as you know it is probably over. Make your plans accordingly. That took the wind out of her sails for a bit. But then she got her center. She came back in. She kneels down. She grabs my hand. And she says, sweetie, if you want to leave, I understand. But if you want to stay, I'm here for you. And we can create a new life because we're having a lot of fun. And then she started repeating over and over. You're strong. You're smart. You're capable. Your brain is healing quickly. Your body knows what to do. You're strong. You're smart. Your brain's healing quickly. Over and over and over. At some point doing that, I gave her hand a couple little pumps. That's all she needed. She knew I was in there somewhere, and I could hear her, and she said, all right, game on. Let's do this. This is that early on, bruised and bad, like I said, I've got a nose tube because I can't swallow. That goes up your nose, down into your gut, and give you nutrients. I'm in the hospital, in the coma, for right at 2 weeks. And they're telling her that he needs professional help. Luckily, the world-famous Craig Rehabilitation Hospital is in our own backyard. They said, you got to get him there. She starts making calls. First, they tell her, we can't take him, we don't have any room. And to get in, you have to be out of your coma and able to swallow. So I'm 0 for 2 there. Undaunted, she continues to call, because we had learned years ago, if you don't get the answer you want, keep asking until you do. She made call after call. Finally, she thought, a lady we know that we used to play softball with was in the medical field. So she reached out to her. She knew someone at Craig, and he had some sort of miraculous phone call, because the next thing you know, I'm admitted to Craig. Still in a coma, and I still can't swallow. So blessings to her. To give you an idea, at the time, they don't give you actual numbers. That little white dot are roughly my odds of recovery. And they define recovery rather loosely as a non-vegetative state. To fully recover as I've done would be even smaller than that. Here I am, this is my 2nd day at Craig. The doctors there give me some new chemicals because they're the professionals. The concoction, the dosages worked, my brain starts firing back online, much like booting up a hard drive. I had to relearn everything. Walk, talk, chew. One of the next things they do is give you a series of tests. They want to see what your starting point is. What are they working with? They give me some flashcards for preschoolers. 60 flashcards, I got 3 right. And I might have guessed at some of those, we'll never know. But that lets them know. And at this point, my wife's like, wow. She was surprised it was that bad. She knew me as a very smart, capable guy, and she's like, well, it could be a while. There's the little lady. She made Wonder Woman look like a preschooler. She was there every day in the hospital for me. Got me to my therapy sessions, got me to lunch. I had to nap between, and she would take care of her store business in between. Then she'd tuck me in at night, take a 45-minute drive home. Next morning, the same thing, over and over and over. Whenever I was napping or we were alone, she would say, you're strong, you're smart, you're capable, your brain knows how to heal, your body knows what to do, you're on the right track. She would tell me the date, where I was, what happened. So things are slowly starting to come online. This is over a course of weeks and months. As I started to be able to think again on my own and process, I use the analogy, it's emerging from a cocoon. We talked about that a lot. You're in a transformative state because who you went in and what you could do and the way you're coming out are totally different. I could not function the same way. So I had to learn how to do things differently. I couldn't do my old job, so I had to do something new, and that's where I started reinventing myself. Early on at Craig, here's a picture of me. This is when I'm starting doing my therapy. I can't walk yet. I'm learning how to brush my teeth and shave. I couldn't tie my shoes, couldn't get dressed. But the mind's starting to work. My therapists at the time are telling me, do what you can to start connecting memories. We got to get those neurons back to firing. So as a thought would come in, they said, stay with it and try to expand upon it. And that's where your great golf course here in this great city helped me. Serious. A few years prior to this event, I picked up golf. And a group of us guys came out here for a long weekend and had the time of our life. It was the first time I'd ever played a big boy chorus. And I fell in love with Redlands. So that became my goal, is to be able to start mentally, sequentially doing the holes. So at first I could do number one, and then I could do the finishing hole, and everything else, nothing, nothing, nothing. After a few days, I could do one, and I could do 17, that cool part 3, and then the finishing hole. Progress. Eventually, over months, I was able to sequentially do them in order. So again, thank you, Redlands. What I want to share with you now are the tools and techniques we used that allowed me to fully recover. And you can use these for anything you want to create. First step, you got to establish your vision. And mine came with me, I was still in Craig. My wife and I had a meeting with our doctor. He explained to us that my progress had plateaued. It was going up slightly, and now it's just kind of flat. He said, you don't worry, it won't go back down, but I'm just letting you know, it may not improve. I remember walking out of that meeting. I could walk now. I'm holding onto the rail on the wall, and I stop, and I tell my wife, I said, I'm not doing this. And she said, you're not doing what? I said, I'm not going through life brain injured. I'm going to fully recover, and no one will ever know. And she said, all right, let's do this. That was my vision. That was my commitment. Without a vision, it's like getting in your car on a cold winter morning and you can't see out. You can't adjust. You can't adjust your speed. You can't react. So vision is very important. It gives you a sense of direction. It allows you to make adjustments. The other nice thing about a vision is you don't have to know every step between where you are and where you want to go. You just need to know, I'm going to take this step. If you can take the next step, you do it. Maybe you're waiting for a decision or the timing isn't right. So you step over here and you do this. You take a step forward. You keep taking the steps necessary to move towards your vision. You do what feels right and seems logical. I also employed the power of commitments. I worked at Coors in the research and development department. And our group was we were small, maybe 8 or 10 of us. We were extremely influential within the organization. And we were that way because we got stuff done. Our mantra was, commitments are carved in stone. You do what you said you would do when you said you would do it. To illustrate the power of commitments, these young lads, and for those of you that don't know them, these are the Beatles in the early years. Now, when they got together, none of them, as in 0, could read music. And you would think deciding to be a rock band is kind of a prerequisite. But no. They had their vision. They would play, someone would go, ooh, I like the sound of that. They would expand upon it. And they set the world on fire. It wasn't until later that McCartney taught himself how to read music. So again, you got your vision, you don't worry about the details. And then you drop your crutches. This is what I say, this is when you become a warrior. You got your vision, you become mission focused. And you say, that's what I'm going to accomplish. That's where I'm going. And then you do what is necessary. A lot of times the crutches are mental crutches. Things you were taught by a teacher or your parents when you're a young kid, and you've carried them through you to the rest of your life. If they're not helping you move forward, drop them and start over. I liken this to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. To me, the greatest line in there is she says, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. Who you were yesterday and the tools you used yesterday may not be adequate today. Be willing to lay them down and find new tools that help you succeed. I also suggest checking in periodically on your mental chatter. Listen in. In what way are you clipping your own wings? What stories are you telling yourself that are preventing you from flying and soaring? We also had a great mentor. taught us that what you focus on expands. That's also being said today is what you think about, you bring about. Where your focus goes, the energy flows. This is now being scientifically proven. Our thoughts and words have power. And this is not new information. 2,000 years ago, Buddha, the enlightened one, was saying the same thing. There's no magic here. It's a matter of discipline, saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. A reminder, you have the power. You may have forgotten it, but you have the power. And now, the cat's out of the bag. The bell's been rung, the genie's out of the bottle, you know too much. You can't go back. So as you encounter little roadblocks along the way, take a moment and summon your energy and say, okay, I can do this. What's the message here? How can I use this to move forward and accomplish my vision? The one takeaway I would ask you to leave here, as you move towards your vision and what you want to create, summon your power, and then you can create anything you want. As we used to say in my research and development days, the impossible just takes a little longer. Thank you.